In literally just a matter of days, like 2 days, it's the NBA draft. It is literally 1 week since the Suns lost the NBA Finals. And guess what? We're already talking about the NBA draft. So this is fantastic. This is a good way to kind of exercise the demons, to move on from everything that we felt from last year, compartmentalize it, put it away, deal with that depression in about 20 years. But until then, we got a lot to look forward to and a lot to talk about. So as I bring in Matthew, I got to ask you, are you depressed now? Or are you excited because we're talking NBA draft already?
No, I'm never depressed about the Suns. Mostly it's just like an imbalance with my brain chemicals, stuff like that. But that's about it. I'm very excited for this because today, what did Chris Paul post something about getting back to work? Jay Crowder's already said that. But the most exciting thing is we might have a new Suns member here quickly in a couple days. And it's going to be very, very random to who they select. So I'm excited to get like as much information as we can today with Brandon.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun podcast for those of you who are watching along live. We appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe if you're here. And if you're listening along on the Dry Heat Podcast Network, subscribe there as well. Throw us one of those 5-star reviews. Give us one of those nice little kind of type in your thoughts and your comments, and we'll read it right here on the show. But that's what this is about. This is about looking forward, looking and trying to understand what is available for the Suns to pick at pick number 29. This isn't a lottery year. For the first time in a long time, not a lot of the guys that we're going to be discussing today possess numerous tools that make them available at the top of the lottery. We're at the back end of that first round, so it's going to be really interesting to navigate a lot of these different prospects and see where they ultimately could land, preferably in Phoenix, based on some of the insight that we're going to get from, the guy who I like to call the bright side of the Suns, Kevin O'Connor, because he knows his draft stuff. Brandon, a.k.a. Zona Hoops. I mean, he does a fantastic job. He's on with Brendan Clean all the time on the Locked On Suns podcast. So a fantastic resource to talk about relative to the NBA draft, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And right when you said that, I was thinking the same exact thing about this guy. So I'm very excited for this pod.
Yes. So again, we'll bring him on momentarily, but Jamsters, a reminder, you can follow the show at Suns Jam on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that fun stuff. You can follow me at Darth Voida. You can follow Matthew.
I'm Matthew Lissy.
And this is a reminder, I'm just going to get this out of the way now. The basketball season's come to an end, but the anticipation for next season is just beginning with the draft, which is on Thursday. So whether your team has the first pick or the last pick, DraftKings is bringing you excitement. And it's going to be via the way that they're doing their free-to-enter draft pool this Thursday with $10,000 up for grabs. DraftKings they have these free-to-play pools. They're easy to enter. You just download their DraftKings app. You go to pools, and you choose from a wide variety of free contests for an opportunity to win cash prizes. Answer a handful of questions around what you think is going to happen on draft night and track your results throughout the evening. DraftKings is actually going to be hosting a draft night-specific pool with questions ranging from who will be picked before whom, all the way to who do you think a trade will be, or what team is going to have the most trades in the first round. DraftKings safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code DRYHEAT to enter the free draft pool with $10,000 in prizes up for grabs. That's promo code DRYHEAT to get a free shot at $10,000 in total prizes only on DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. I cannot get that word down. I swear to God. Eligibility.
Are you drinking better, man?
I'm getting there. You drinking anything?
Not tonight.
We're talking draft. I got to pop something. So I've got Sunday. This is actually Four Peaks solar-powered seltzer. I got the Tropical Sunday that I'm super excited to try out on the podcast. So shout out to Josh and Trevor at Four Peaks for hooking us up. Pop them if you got them, Suns fans. And let's talk about the NBA draft prospects with Brandon. All right, so I'm not going to lie. I'm somebody who thoroughly enjoys listening to the Timeline podcast. And Brandon, I saw that you were on with them earlier this week. So I was like, you know what? I can't listen to it because I don't want to hear what they ask you. I don't want all that insight. I thought I'd right here for the Suns Jam Session podcast. But Brandon, welcome for your first time ever to the Suns Jam Session. How are you doing, brother?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate the invite. And yeah, I'll probably repeat myself a little bit from the timeline here and there, but I mean, the Suns are picking 29th, so it's going to be a lot of the same targets. So, I'm glad that the turnover time is pretty short. So we're not talking about the draft for like 3 months. Like the usual cycle is it's pretty annoying because it just never stops. So it's kind of nice for a change to just have like this, week and a half turnaround. So looking forward to it.
So what's your background relative to researching prospects? Is it something that you've been doing for, a long time that you picked up early on and you just like, hey, that's my niche, I like doing that? Or is it something that, you did a couple times and you realize like, hey, I was right, maybe I should continue to do this? Or is it a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I would say I fully got into it like 3-4 drafts ago. And I would say like just, riding for Bright Side of the Sun, doing stuff for like my site and just trying to amplify it and get more coverage. I mean, I'm still obviously going to get a lot of stuff wrong. Everyone does. It's not a perfect science. I'm not one of those guys that's like going to, gatekeep or whatever to like non-draft Twitter people. But yeah, it's just good to like measure, especially for the Suns. They've been in the lottery for so long. So yeah, it's just been something I've done on the side, and yeah.
So is it weird having them pick at like 29? You're like, whoa, hold on. I'm used to looking at lottery guys, and second round draft picks. Now we're at 29.
Yeah, it's already hard enough to guess who Jones is going to pick when they're in the lottery. So now there's more external factors. It's like, all right, now there's like 28 teams in front of them. So who knows? It's just going to make it that much more difficult. And there's more names to cover. So it's a fun challenge, but, it's now amplified by about 10 times as far as being unlikely to actually get the pick right.
Is there a certain amount of like actual spot on picks that you've had, like the first round, maybe top 13, top 15, anything like that? Because I'm assuming you do a big board for all the teams, right? To where you have it laid out kind of, or do you go that specific into it? I know with Brightside you do mostly the Sun stuff, but do you have the big board for the rest of the teams too?
Yeah, and I'd say big boards are like mostly useless, honestly, unless it's like specific to a team. Unless you're just trying to like measure yourself. Yeah, it's fun. That's for sure. Because you could kind of measure and see like where you're at, and but there's just so much context in it. It's like, what are you measuring? Like instant impact, like long-term value, stuff like that. But I think team boards are probably the best way to go. So yeah, I've done a lot of like Sun-specific stuff, but I also keep a general board just to kind of, use as a measuring tool for myself as well.
Well, and I got to thank you again for coming on the pod, because myself, like most Suns fans, haven't had really the time or the energy to look really deep into this draft. I think that once we all realized that we were going to be a playoff team this season, and that was probably around February or March, right when March Madness was happening, it was pretty clear that the Suns weren't going to be a playoff team. So at that time, although I watched the NBA draft, I wasn't watching it through the same lens that I normally do, where it's like, okay, let me watch this point guard from Gonzaga and see what he's about, because he's somebody who could potentially be somebody I'm targeting. I was just enjoying the basketball. So, given your research and given your affinity for this, I got to thank you, because I don't know half of these guys' names, man.
That's what I'm here for. So.
And I got to ask you, with names like Kuminga, Sengun, Garuba, Kispert, Thor, and Primo, and I know I got all those wrong, does this draft feature some of the weirdest names you've ever seen on a draft board?
Oh yeah, this is the all name draft for sure. And you also got like nicknames like Bones Highland and Deuce McBride. So it doesn't stop. Top to bottom. There's some awesome names.
Yeah, and honestly, is it weird to ask that question, or is it offensive? Because a lot of these people, that's their names. I don't know if we can really say it's weird, right? Is that?
My last name is Voida. Your last name is
Lissy. But that's a bad last name. Lissy,
but we just have
these are
like
awesome,
mine's
though.
weird, so like I can accept that,
Okay. I was making sure before we publish this podcast.
Matthew, we're live. Like it's a little
too late.
I don't know if
we're canceled.
Too late now.
We've already canceled. Matthew, I don't know if you know this, but we've been doing this for a long time. We've been live this whole time. I don't know if this is breaking news to you.
Yeah.
But
I've gotten a few letters. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I know. Well, they're emails. No one sends them actually to your house. So I'll ask you this, Brandon. What's your baseline? Like, what roster need do you think the Suns should address via the draft?
So
And
typically
I
in
know
the
it's a
draft,
loaded question.
yeah, no, that's fair. So I'd say typically in an off season, you have needs that you need to fill, and that can come obviously via trade, free agency, or draft. I personally don't think you should ever draft for need unless you have like a very specific need that you want to hit, and it's a no brainer. What I like to do is like just look at the roster and your core. So like Devin Booker, DeAndre, and Mikal Bridges, like who's going to fit around them the best, like in the long run. That's what I think the Suns need to focus on, and that's why Cam Johnson was taken by James Jones, and theoretically Jalen Smith, like to be determined how that works out. But I think just finding the right pieces to fit with your core long term should be the goal for a team that already has the infrastructure, like the engines that run the offense. So, but for like a rebuilding team, you could draft like a little more risky, I would say, and just take those swings because you need that main piece to build around. But yeah, for the Suns specifically, just finding the right pieces around their core that they have in place.
And I think.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you were thinking first, so you talk.
No, I was thinking. I was actually going to ask. I don't know if you want to go into the actual positions now. Were you going to ask something before that? Because I know position by position.
I was just going to say, that's an interesting observation because you do sometimes see teams that draft for need and they don't necessarily draft for talent. And I think the Kings are a really good example of that. It's a team that's perennially in the draft because they're sitting there trying to build this squad through the draft rather than just taking kind of the best player possible. They draft De'Aaron Fox one year. The next year, they've got Luka Doncic staring him at the face, and they're like, well, we'll go with Marvin Bagley. And like now they've become kind of that perennial joke, if you will, relative to the draft. And you look at the Suns, and to your point, they're drafting kind of what James Jones wants and how he takes a look at a player and evaluates a player. Because when we drafted Josh Jackson, I know this is pre-James Jones, but when you had McDonough, he took Josh Jackson. We had TJ Warren and we had a bunch of wings at that time, but we went that route. And then when you had, Cameron Johnson, obviously no one saw that coming. Jalen Smith, no one saw that coming. But again, he has a specific way that he's approaching the draft that a lot of us are blind to. But I think that's a good point. You don't always have to draft for need. And I think it's important for Suns fans to hear that because a lot of people, especially, and Twitter, I got to say, Twitter's dark these days, dude. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed, man. It is dark. And Matthew, I know you haven't noticed because I
stay away as much as I can.
You're smart, dude.
Yeah, tell me how dark it is, dude.
I just go on and people are fighting back and forth. Like I'll post something like, "Yay, CP3, he might be coming back because he posted something today." And there's guys like Warriors fans and people just man, if I ever saw you in real life, that kind of stuff. It's really dark right now. But I think it's important for Suns fans to hear that it's you don't always have to draft for need. If you think that the Suns are in need of a backup big, the draft might not be the place to go and get that. It might be a place to get somebody who you could potentially develop, but it's not necessarily the answer to the question that you're asking. And I think that's a very astute observation from Brandon.
Yeah, but do you think Jalen Smith, though, that was a need, right? The backup big, was that something that James Jones was trying to hit on? Because I know we had Cameron Payne and Javon Carter coming back the next year. So maybe that's why Halliburton wasn't drafted. Just things like that. So I think last year kind of looked like a need kind of draft. Do you agree, Brandon? Or was it just the best player on their board, you think?
I do agree. And, I'm not going to speak for James Jones, but I think he probably thought Smith might be able to contribute a little bit sooner than he did because they needed some help. I mean, they were down to the Frank minutes and some small ball lineups at points in the playoffs. And so that just shows you that Smith just wasn't ready. And that's sometimes how you can get burned by drafting for need because you're relying on a kid to come in and fill a role, especially for a contender. So I think they need to look at whoever they draft's probably not going to play a significant role anyways year one. So just take someone that's going to fit with the core the best in the long run, which Tyrese Halliburton would be a name that would fit that mold. But yeah, I think you just got to take it case by case, and hopefully this year they can find a diamond in the rough.
Well, that's the end goal, and I think that I think the way that we should approach this is just kind of get your thoughts on because again, I got to thank you because your Twitter feed and your website zonahoops.com is where I go to try to see draft things that are relative to the Suns, and those are the names that I'll look at, and that's where I kind of start my research. And I got to admit, I tried starting research, and I've been so busy outside of in the real world, if you will, I didn't get a chance to do much research. But what we could do, if this works for you, is just essentially come up with, two guards, two wings, and two bigs that you can see the Suns drafting, and then you can tell us what's appealing about these prospects, what their strengths are, and what their weaknesses are, if that works for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Fantastic.
Appreciate that as well.
Yeah, of course. So let's start off with your first guard that you're kind of seeing could fit within the confines of the Suns draft.
So I think the obvious one is Jared Butler. There's a pretty good chance he might not drop to 29, but if he's there, he had the whole medical situation and he got cleared, obviously. But if he's available, I think the Suns need to sprint to the podium and make the pick as quick as possible. He fits the James Jones mold. Just, he's a winner, obviously national champion, upperclassman. He can shoot the hell out of the ball, can play on and off the ball too. So I think he's a really good fit and someone that I think it's a rare blend of he could play right away, but he's also a good fit next to Booker and this core moving forward. And I think he has the best handle in the class, super shifty and can score from pretty much all three levels. And I think he's someone that probably not high likelihood that he falls to Phoenix, but if he's there and teams overthink the medical issue, then it could be a really nice pick for them.
Yeah, this is a guy that I went and I took a look at after looking at your list, and man, I really hope he falls to the Suns because he does have, again, that national championship mentality, playing for Baylor last season. He's somebody who is just kind of has that complete ball handling skill, really shifty, like you said. And I don't know. I fell in love with the highlights on this guy. Matthew, did you take a look at him?
Yeah, actually I did. I liked what I saw. I mean, I kind of didn't at first when I was watching him, I was like, I don't really get the hype, because I did hear his name a lot. But when I was watching him on just the highlights, really, he looked like a guy that can get to the end and to the basket, to the lane. He's smaller. He's 6'4", but he plays bigger than that. And he seems like he's an improved passer too, and a knockdown shooter. But I liked what I saw after just going through the full 12-minute video that I watched. At first, I'm like, I don't really see it. But then towards the end, it's just it's kind of like a movie you're watching at first. You're like, I don't know. You just got to get into it, get 10 or 12 minutes into it. And then it's a good movie. But he looks like legit, dude. And like you said, he's number 22 right now, predicted on Kevin O'Connor's big board to go to the Lakers. So if he drops, yeah, I would definitely nab him at 29.
I'll tell you this, watching the highlights of these kids in college, I mean, and Brandon, you could probably attest to this, their range is getting ridiculous, dude. All these kids are chucking up threes from half court and just nothing but net.
Oh, yeah. The Steph Curry effect. I mean, about, 5 years ago, just all these kids saw that and they've been perfecting it. So it's crazy.
And you expect him to shoot over 40% right now. I feel like anything under 40, this is just something I think of. Anything under 40 is I feel like not as good, obviously, but it's something that you don't want to say oh, he's a great 3-point shooter. Not until he's a 40% shooter. Do you feel the same way, or because I just feel like they're all 40% plus now?
Oh yeah,
coming out of college.
Yeah, so it depends too. For some younger prospects, I give them a little more leeway, but for upperclassmen, it needs to be close to that 40 mark for sure. I also think you have to look at the types of shots they're taking. So if they're taking some crazy Bones Highland, I'll just throw that name out there right now. He's has crazy audacity on some of his shots that'll pull up from 35 feet, and he's probably one of the best pull-up shooters, but his percent's at 37. He's a much better shooter than that. So I think it's kind of situational, but yeah, for the most part, upperclassmen, especially someone like Jared Butler, it has to be around that 40% mark.
Yeah, it's getting.
Is that your other guard, Bones Highland?
No, it's not. I just wanted to tie him in.
Oh, okay. Because I liked him too, actually. I just wanted to say really quick. Well. He reminded me of Barbosa, the way he plays. I don't know that that's weird, but the way he's kind of hunched over and he leans forward, his stop and pop they kind of look similar in a way. I know he only shoots 37%, but I just think he reminded me of Barbosa. I just want to throw that out there from the first look at him.
Yeah, he's an awesome shooter. He could shoot off spot ups, coming off screens. He plays really well off the ball too. So someone I could see being a fit in Phoenix next to Booker. Just he's not going to be a primary point guard, but he's someone I think can score and fill it up in a hurry.
Yeah, another guy who's 6'2". So you see a lot of these, kind of Langston Galloway-esque kind of shooters, and that's what they're going to contribute. What I know, what a lot of people, when it comes to Bones Highland, they really like him simply because of his nickname. They're like, oh, we could have sticks and bones, and they don't break our bones. And like, it's like, okay, I get it. It's a good nickname. It's a damn good nickname. It's
worth it.
Is it worth it? So, I mean, if they somehow become two key cogs in this offense moving forward down the line, yeah, it would be fantastic marketing for the Phoenix Suns, but I don't know if it necessarily will work. So who's your second guard who you see the Suns potentially drafting, Brandon?
I mentioned him earlier, Miles McBride from West Virginia. He's 6'2", has a 6'9" wingspan, which is insane. Really good pull-up shooter. Point of attack defense is awesome. Like, he just disrupts the hell out of the ball handler, and typical like Bob Huggins, West Virginia defender, just really annoying, just like Javon Carter. So I think the difference between someone like him and Javon is he's longer, a little bit more athletic, and I think the pull-up shooting is a lot more advanced than it was for Carter at the same age. So I think like a longer, more athletic Javon with more shooting upside, and he's someone I could see replacing potentially like Javon and actually getting some good run off the bench.
There you go. And another Mountaineer, just like Javon Carter.
Yeah,
Matthew?
he also he just like, I like how you brought up the shooting, because the one thing I noticed too was he had that turnaround jump shot that they kept bringing up in highlights, to where he can pull that off at a 6'2" frame. So that's pretty impressive. No matter who really is guarding him. So maybe he's one of those guards now. You know how the guards like the switches to get on the big men and can really pull off that fadeaway like a Chris Paul. I'm not saying that he's Chris Paul, but I think a lot of the guards look for that now and the mismatches, and it looks like this guy can do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know who any of these guys are. I feel so bad. Like, normally I can contribute. I'm like, yeah, based on the highlights, I didn't. Again, I think that this is who Kevin O'Connor currently, after today, updated his mock. I think this is who he actually had the Suns taking. And so, reading through his pluses and minuses and everything that Kevin O'Connor has on the ringer, again, another guy who I think when you get back down to the 29th pick in the draft, this is somebody who potentially could make an impact for the team. One guy that I wanted to bring up and get your thoughts on is the point guard. I did mention him, the point guard from Gonzaga. He is kind of a little bit further down on the big board for KOC, but Joel Ayayi. I know it's kind of a funny name to say, but he's 6'5", and this kid can do a lot of things. And I really enjoyed watching his highlight reel. Tell me what your thoughts are on him.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think him and Quentin Grimes are like two names that should also like be included in this list, along with Bones as well. There's just so many guards in the back end of the draft, but Ayayi is kind of like an unheralded member of Gonzaga's team. Like, that was really good. He didn't get as much buzz as like Kispert or Timmy or some of those guys, but I think he was a major reason they were as good as they were. More of a combo guard than a point, I would say, but he's someone that, super high IQ, excellent cutter, which I think fits right in the 0.5 system, and he could finish really well. I think 60+% from two. So he's someone that can shoot as well. So I think just really well-rounded, just like Swiss Army knife type guard that I could totally see Jones liking, just because he comes from a winning program, and he's European as well. So there's a lot of connections I could see that tie the Suns to him. So yeah, that's a good call.
There you go. I'm calling it right now, Matthew. That's who Jones is going to pick, because he's way down on the draft board. There's no way he should be picked at 29.
The one guy you researched?
Yeah, the one guy researched. That's who Jones is taking.
Yes, I hope so.
I'm calling it now. I like who he is. I think that, looking at what he did, I always have said the Suns, and again, you don't draft for need, but I think that the Suns need somebody to back up Devin Booker consistently, who can, play offense and defense from the two-guard position. We haven't had that in a long time behind Devin Booker, if at all, throughout his career with the Suns. So that potentially could be somebody who could develop into that kind of player. All right, so let's move on to the wings. Who are you targeting from the wing position? And you said the guards, it's more of a guard draft on the back half. Is this a wing heavy top end of draft and then it kind of peters out, or is it kind of consistent throughout?
Yeah, the wings, I would say, like once you get past like the big three that I call like James Jones, he'd probably take them all first if he could. If they pick first, it's Corey Kispert, Trey Murphy, and Chris Duarte. They're all older. They all like shoot the hell out of the ball. So I think they're all going to be well off the board by the time the Suns pick. And after that, it gets pretty like there's a stark drop off, I think, in wings. So it's definitely an area I don't think the Suns like, unless they could definitely reach for someone, but it doesn't look too likely unless one of those three fall that they're they're going to take one. But the guy I'll focus on is just Trey Murphy out of Virginia. Really good shooter, 50, 40, 90 club, 6'9", pretty athletic. And like he's a prototype as like a 3-and-D guy, but might have a little bit more to his bag. So it kind of reminds me of like Cam Johnson a little bit in that way. But he's just shooting up draft boards right now. So it's tough to see that being like a realistic option at this point.
Yeah, he's going number 16, I think, right now. I like him a lot too. And he reminds me, it's a little bit of a weird comparison, but he reminds me of Rose Lissy, my mom. Just he's always on the court trying to do something. My mom is always on the move. She never sits down. This guy looks like that, offense and defensive end. He's number 13 on the big board, but I think they have him going 16 right now. To the Thunder. But I like him a lot too, and I think defensively he's astounding, and 44% from three, so that's pretty great. I guess like the negatives really were bad ball handling skills, who cares, and then can't create his own shot. But the things he was doing on the court, how active he is, I love that. And the Cam Johnson comparison is really awesome. But it's like towards the end of the year, we kind of saw how Cam Johnson was kind of turning into like more of a favorite over Mikal Bridges. And do you think he's more of like an in-between, or he is just like a Cam Johnson, and then he'll expand his game beyond what we're seeing now, of course? But is he more towards Cam Johnson or like a Mikal? Because he's not really similar to Mikal, is he?
Yeah, I'd say he's probably closer to Cam at this point, especially like pre-draft, all the stuff that you just mentioned about not able to create for himself or like ball handling. Cam Johnson had the same like red flags, and he's really gradually improved over his first 2 seasons as well. So that's kind of where I got that comp from. And like even just like 2 months ago, like Murphy was viewed as like a 2nd round guy, maybe undrafted, but just really has risen up the boards. And I think just he must be killing it in workouts. And sometimes that stuff just takes a while to catch up, like on the big boards and mock drafts, like because everyone just kind of copies each other. I said this on the timeline, like once one person does it, everyone else is like, oh, this guy actually is a legit prospect, and it just kind of trickles down across the board. So that's kind of one reason I think like guys like him and Duarte and even Corey Kispert have just like soared up draft boards, because you're going to get someone that can come in and fill out a role like right away.
Absolutely. And I know Corey Kispert, he's somebody I wasn't overly impressed with when he played for Gonzaga. But again, what the hell do I know? But it is kind of interesting to see, the Trey Murphy comp on the Ringer is OG Anunoby, DeAndre Hunter, and Cam Johnson. And it's just, it's just so funny how 2 years ago, everybody's who, what, and now he's getting that comp out there. And, again, you're right. It's the same thing in football. Like there'll be some quarterback you've never heard about who one guy thinks he has got, amazing arm strength. This guy's got the best arm strength I've ever seen. And all of a sudden he's getting drafted by the Bears with like the 3rd pick in Mitch Trubisky, and then he ends up being dog shit. So, I mean, sometimes, it's kind of hard to trust those draft boards. And we know, especially as Suns fans, how fickle drafting is. It's not a perfect science, or everybody would be great at it. And I think that when you start to look at people like Trey Murphy and you start to really delve, and people have the time to delve, as long as they don't overthink it, I think that they really have a good opportunity to get a good prospect. I do think that that's what happened in last year's draft. Is we had like 7. You must have hated last year, Brandon. Oh my gosh. Because of the pandemic, you had like 8 months to mess with your board. How was that?
Yeah, that's why everyone was like happy that draft cycle ended. It was just the longest process, and I think everyone was just overthinking everything at that point. So I think if a situation like that ever happens again, God forbid, then I'm just going to cut myself off at a date and just say I'm done. Like this is all I need to watch. I'm not going to overthink it. But yeah, it was a crazy process for sure.
Yeah, Matthew, we must have done like 16 different draft pods where we were just like, we were so over it by the time it happened. And then we took Jalen Smith.
Yeah. It was one of those things where we thought we had our guys, but then he just took some. We knew Jalen Smith. We watched him. We actually liked him. We just didn't think he would go that soon to the Suns.
Exactly. So, all right, Brandon, give us another wing. Who is another guy out there that you have your eye on for the Suns?
So Kessler Edwards out of Pepperdine, 6'8". 3, maybe like a tweener, like a 3/4. Really good shooter, probably like one of the best team defenders, like super disruptive in the passing lanes, and average over a block and steal per game. So someone I could see fit again with the Suns, like the defensive identity. And again, it fits that James Jones mold where it's like a 10-pick reach on most boards. He's an upperclassman, and he can shoot. So He could be like a poor man's Trey Murphy in like the back end of the first round if you're trying to get some value. But yeah, like I said, I mean, there's a pretty big drop off on wings, like in the Suns range specifically. And it's funny, Joe Wieskamp is right below him because he's another name that I think Jones could actually wind up reaching for possibly, because he kind of fits the older shooter and just like really high IQ. And both those guys I think could play roles right away too. But it's at this point in the draft, it's all just kind of a long shot. So
how do you think his jump shot's going to translate to the NBA? It's a little bit awkward. I feel like every time when he's shooting, he's not really planted in the same spot. He's just kind of moving while he's shooting. So do you think it'll translate okay? Because it's very awkward.
Yeah, it is pretty awkward. It's the good thing about it is it's at least kind of quick. So it's not like it's taking him a ton of time to get into it compared to someone like a Halliburton where that was a major concern. And that's kind of why he dropped. I think that was like a major factor that no one really talked about, or people talked about it. But I think that was the main reason, like on draft night, he fell. People weren't sure he's going to be able to, get a shot off in the NBA. So it's definitely something that I think is a concern. And that's why he's kind of mocked in the second round, because if it was a little more clean, he'd be like a can't miss first round prospect for most boards, I think, just because of his skill set, just a 3-and-D plug and play wing. Yeah, I think the shot's going to have to be there for him to stick because he can't really do much else other than he's a really good defender, but he's someone that just kind of fits like that mold that Jones likes to target.
Well, this is great because now I'm not super excited about wings. I'm still more excited about guards. Kessler Edwards, Pepperdine. Let's see, Dennis Johnson, former Phoenix Suns. He went Phoenix Suns guard. He went to Pepperdine, and what's that guy's name, Matthew? We used to always fuck it up on the pod. Grant Gondrezic, guy who got busted for doing cocaine with the Suns in the 80s. He's a Pepperdine. He's a Pepperdine guy too. I just remember random things I remember, dude. Random things I remember. All right, so there you go. So okay, now bigs is obviously the last category, but it's also something that's very fresh on a lot of Suns fans' minds. Dario Saric goes down to the NBA Finals. We don't have the depth necessary. Jalen Smith wasn't ready for the opportunity to step in and fill the role that he was essentially drafted for. Are there any bigs in this draft that you have your eyes on? And again, same question. Is this still a guard-heavy back end of the draft, or will some bigs have the opportunity to fall down to 29?
Yeah, so I think in general, like right now, I'm just leaning towards drafting a guard creator and just taking that swing just because you can go out and sign like a JaVale McGee, Nerlens Noel, or like one.
Yeah, I think we're losing a little bit, Brandon. Sorry, man.
Yeah, you're beatboxing.
Yeah, just
hold on.
Bit.
Oh no, there you go. We got you back.
All right, cool.
Perfect.
So what part was I cut off at?
Literally the beginning of the bigs.
Yeah. Okay. So I think in general, I'm leaning more towards taking a guard just because I think bigs, like they're so it's especially in free agency when you can go out and sign like a JaVale McGee or like a Daniel Tice or Nerlens Noel, just throwing names out there like that can fill that role that you just needed right away. Whereas like taking a kid and expecting them to come in, these bigs take a long time to develop. It's a risky game. So I prefer to kind of go against that. But if they're looking for instant impact, like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl out of Villanova is a name that I think can make some sense. And he seems like a James Jones guy as well.
Yeah, I know all this because I read your piece today on Bright Side of the Sun. And it's really what I was like, okay, yeah. Again, looking at everything that is out there, I'm not seeing a lot of guys who have the capacity to come in and create any impact. And we saw this again last year. And we saw with DeAndre Ayton, his first year, he obviously had the opportunity to play because he's the number one overall pick, but there was a lot of growing pains there. And we saw him work those out in his second season in the NBA to where he got to the point where he's at. And he's still, just 23 last year. But and Matthew says it all the time, like it takes time for these guys to actually develop. So Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, from Villanova, another one of those programs that typically produces quality players. According to KOC, he's got the hustle, he's got the feel for the game, he's got the interior scoring. He's somebody who, again, though, is about 6'8". He's not your 7-footer that a lot of people think you need to be successful. Matthew, did you check out highlights on Jeremiah Robinson Earl?
No, not this guy. I do have a few though. If after we finish with the next one, if Brandon does a hit on him, I'll ask about him.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Brandon, who else do you have?
So JT Thor out of Auburn's another name that I think more of a swing.
Yes.
Yeah, going back to the names. But yeah, he's more of a swing and someone that I'd be on board with taking that swing for a big like that if you're going to take one. I'd rather do that than go sign someone like JRE, who I think has kind of limited upside. Like Thor, he's pretty versatile. Like it says it right there. Like he moves well for a big too. So like if like in a alternate universe where him and Jalen Smith both pan out, like I was saying this on the timeline, you could throw out some really funky lineups with some dudes that can move and bring the ball off the floor. The shot's kind of like a work in progress with him, but overall he seems more like a Ryan McDonough pick than a James Jones pick. But yeah, like the thing is, like at 29, it's fine to take those home run swings, I think, instead of just trying to, take someone like him in the lottery. Which if you just looked at Thor's highlights, you'd say, how is this guy not in the lottery? Like he has some really high flashes that are impressive, but still super raw and probably a couple years away from contributing.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's bad is because I would love to take this guy at number 29. He just looks fun. I mean, the defense is there, the rim protection. What I noticed, too, from just the highlights watching is he seems like he knows how to actually attack the ball defensively around the rim without trying to draw contact. He can stay away from drawing the foul, which was pretty cool. But, yeah, his shot, it looks like it's in the works a little bit, but he does have kind of a stroke, a little bit of moves sometimes, it looks like, but he just looks like a fun player, man. And the defensive part of it, even filling the lanes and stuff like that, he seems interesting. I was very excited to ask about him because I was like, if he's there and we get him, I would actually probably get out of my seat and start golf clapping for that one. Just a little bit. Yeah.
Summer League would be fun with him and Sticks running around doing crazy stuff.
He's like the same size. He looks like Sticks' size, right? But just more athletic in a way. I don't know. It's weird. That's what he reminded me of, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, it's a valid point that you can take some swings and misses because these aren't the lottery picks. So, if you feel like somebody's going to fit and has the long-term opportunity to benefit the team, like take a swing at this guy. Thor, that's a great jersey, dude.
Yeah, the Valley jerseys would sell out immediately. But so there you go, marketing team, get ready.
Get on that. So we have Legend E in the chat, and he's asked a couple times, where do you think Luka Garza is going? He's from Iowa.
I think he's probably more of like a late second round type pick for a team that's just looking for like a backup big. I think the defensive issues with him are pretty stark. Like they're going to make teams like think twice about making him like the hub of like an offense just because he can't really guard in space, but offensively he's awesome. He dominated the college game, and there's a reason like Iowa was as good as they were for every year he was there. But to me, he seems more like just a really good college player, possibly someone that could go overseas and like dominate. But like the NBA spacing, I think would get to him. But yeah, I think he's more of a second round pick. But it wouldn't shock me if James Jones wanted to take him, at 29, just because he fits like the whole BPM model that Draft Twitter thinks they've discovered, like, James Jones's formula to make the picks.
Yes.
So it's like Jared Butler's in that group, Luka Garza, a few others. But yeah, I think he's more of a second round guy, though.
Yeah. What about someone just brought up really quick? Kai Jones. He'll have to fall. Now I think he's going number 20 right now. But he looks fun. I mean, he looks like a guy that's a rim runner that can really just, get on the glass, do a lot there. Very athletic. I don't know. You think he has a chance of falling maybe to the Suns?
I think he'll probably be gone before then.
Yeah.
But he's sort of similar like JT Thor in the sense if you just watch his highlights, like he looks like an animal. And I think he's a little more refined than him. So a little safer. It's still a gamble with Kai Jones, I think, but it's a little bit safer with him. I think he's a little more polished. But yeah, he'd be an awesome fit. And I think someone that once he's like actualized that could fit that role that they actually really need right now, especially in the Bucks series, just another body to throw at Giannis or like Bobby Portis or whoever it was. But so I think he'd be an awesome fit. It's just tough to see him dropping.
We need to put somebody on Pat Connaughton, get him to stop all those fucking rebounds. All right, woosah. Matthew, you got another question?
I shouldn't have brought up the Bucks. It's too soon.
I know it's too soon. It's too soon.
Jeez, you know, I actually was listening to Russillo today. He had a Bobby Portis on. I turned it off halfway through. I'm like, I can't stand this. But yeah. So next question. So last year's draft, we brought up Halliburton. You know, that was a tough one to watch go by. So is there a player where if he's there, and I'm not saying like it's a steal really, but if he's just sitting there and the Suns just pass on him, are you gonna be like super upset? Maybe throw something and just say, "Hey, the Suns blew it this draft."
I don't think so, just because it's the 29th pick. So I think there's less at stake. But if Jared Butler was there and they passed on him, then I'd be a little upset.
That's the guy. Okay.
So I agree. It would probably be more like medical related. So maybe there'd be something like behind the scenes that we don't know with him. But, you know, for me, if there's someone that drops, that's like a no brainer. Like I just have to see what the board looks like before declaring I'd throw something. But yeah, there's pretty good chance. Like I think they're going to get someone pretty solid. I like this range of the draft. So hopefully there's no throwing of the remotes or anything like that.
Cool.
I got to say, like, my remote survived the NBA Finals, so it would definitely survive the 29th pick in the NBA draft this year. So, you know, I'll ask you this question because this is a solid one that, you know, we always are talking about. Do the Suns trade the pick, and should they trade the pick?
I don't think they will, but if the right deal comes along, I think they should. Like, especially you have Chris Paul on your team, and I mean, by all means, he's going to resign at this point. It's no secret. So I think trying to build a winner any way possible, like as soon as you can, like adding pieces that can help right away should be the goal. Obviously, there's more risk because you traded your 2022 pick. So, you know, there is some value in having those cheap contracts on the end of the bench that can fill out a role like what Cam Johnson's doing right now. So I think, you know, Larry Nance Jr. is one name I really like. Like if, you know, the Cavs want to take on Saric's contract and just gain an asset like the 29th pick or maybe a future pick or Jalen Smith or something like that, then I say you go for it. But, you know, it also depends on who's on the board too. So I think it could be a situation where the Suns could, you know, just kind of just play it by ear.
Yeah, and kind of, you know, the goal is to see what the interest is in that pick at that time. And they won't know that until Thursday evening when the draft is occurring, because as those prospects, if they start to drop, if some of those big names start to drop and some of those other teams want to get in and get an opportunity to take some of those players, maybe we could dish Saric and get something with that pick, force another asset that could ultimately help this team. Matthew, you got one last question before we bounce?
Yeah. So just overall at NBA teams, do you see a team making a lot of trades? I know the Thunder, usually they're the team to make a lot of moves. Is there one maybe that you think can make a lot of moves, trade away their assets? Who knows? Do you see anybody moving up?
I think it's going to be the Thunder again. For
sure.
Just
nonstop Thunder every year.
Yeah, they have 6 picks this year. So, I mean, they're going to be wheeling and dealing. They could actually be a trade partner with the Suns if they want to, like, say there's 2 guys on the board the Suns like in the mid-30s and they have the 34th and 36th picks and the Thunder want to move up. That could be an option. But, yeah, I think they're going to be super active. The Warriors, look out for them. They have 2 picks in the lottery. I think they're going to be taking a swing. You know, Steph and Clay, they're going to try to go for one last run. So wouldn't shock me if they made a blockbuster deal. And the Raptors is the third team that kind of sticks out to me. Just, you know, I could see them just picking a direction finally and either blowing it up or possibly retooling. So they're another team that, you know, there's been a lot of rumblings with, you know, Golden State and Toronto. But, yeah, OKC, I think for the next, like, 10 drafts, they're just going to be in the middle of everything. So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, and you have Orlando with the 5 and Orlando with the 8. Do you think they try to package anything and move up and take a shot? Maybe like Evan Mobley is a great player, but I feel like Orlando has like 37 centers, so I guess they wouldn't go for him. But could you see them trying to do anything, or does it just suck to be an Orlando Magic fan?
Yeah, so I could see them making a deal. Like I think either trading like one of their picks with a player, maybe for like something more immediate. It seems like they're just kind of stuck in like purgatory like for so long. So I think they need to make a move one way or the other, like trading up for even Jalen Green or like something like that could be something they could do. But yeah, I think there's a lot of options for them, and they have some contract situations coming up too that they're gonna have to answer. So that's a team I don't envy their GM. He has a lot of stuff going on right now. So
yeah,
but yeah, that's a good call. They're an interesting team to watch.
Is the NBA draft more exciting for you than the Super Bowl, given how much time and effort you put into the NBA draft process?
More exciting? No. Well, it depends. Like, there's been some pretty bad Super Bowls, so it's dependent on the Super Bowl. If it's a fun Super Bowl, then no. But like, if it's a boring Super Bowl and it's like a draft, like I know the Suns are going to be involved, like heavily involved in, then yeah, because I think the NBA offseason in general, like in some parts, is like more fun than the regular season.
It is,
like,
yeah.
Just the offseason, like the Woj bombs, you know, just like refreshing your phone, just seeing if Shams tweeted something, and the excitement behind it, I think there's nothing like it. So,
if speaking of Woj bombs during the draft, what is like the one like Bradley Beal? What's the one player that you can see just popping up? Like, oh, he's traded. Yeah, a couple picks, you know, given to the other team and given to the Wizards, and Bradley Beal is now traded to what team? Do you think like something like that will happen? And if so, do you know what player maybe will be moving?
I'll just go out on a limb and just say something crazy. Dame to Golden State.
Oh,
okay. It's going to happen, right? That's fine.
Just something weird. Like, I don't know, like something weird's going to happen. So I'm just going to shoot my shot. If I'm wrong, everyone will forget about it.
It's going to be
Golden State. You guys can clip this.
Yes.
I look like a genius, so why not?
Yeah. Well, it's easy because Golden State always does something like that, right? You think they're done, and then another big trade, another big name. Yeah, him or Beal will probably end up on Golden State this offseason. That sucks, but it's probably going to happen.
Every year, but the year when they wanted, or the Suns were trying to dish them Amari Stoudemire for the Steph Curry pick. Every year they do something spectacular. Too soon. You know. Yeah, but I'll throw mine out there. I think Kyle Lowry, you know, with the Raptors and everything, I think Kyle Lowry, something's going to happen there. I just feel like they're right there. They're on the precipice of something. So that's what I'm thinking. Matthew, Aaron Baines.
No, actually, I was thinking Ben Simmons.
Ooh.
But maybe not draft night, but I think there's going to be a big trade. I think Ben Simmons, he's not coming back next year to the Sixers.
No.
There's no way. And maybe they can do something in the draft. I don't know. I doubt it. But I keep thinking about him coming up as one of the first players to be traded.
It's going to be interesting.
Westbrook, too.
Yeah.
Westbrook.
Another asset. There. So, I mean, again, that's what's fun about this time of year, especially considering it's condensed once again like last season. And, you know, as Brandon said, like, you know, with the Woj bombs, with the refreshing your feed, just getting ready for all this excitement, it is fun because it's kind of like NBA 2K. You know, that's the fun part about 2K. We like to play the video game, but I think I can't speak for you guys, but whenever I play, like, I spend most of my time like in the off season or during the season, like trading and setting up trades and getting everything ready, because that's the fun part. That's creating. You're creating a new team, and then you hope that team takes flight and does great things. Brandon, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. Can you let all of the Jamsters know where they can read you, follow you, hang out with you on the weekends, watch the Super Bowl with you, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so you can just find my work at zonahoops.com. Have a ton of draft stuff there. Obviously, have some Bright Side of the Sun draft primers coming up too. And yeah, just follow me on Twitter, zonahoops_. And yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what they do, because this will be. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of the whole James Jones guy like saying. So I'm hoping he just does something that just like end that and just does something crazy, like takes JT Thor or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there you go, Thor. Just do it.
Just do something normal. And we appreciate you again being on. I know we're not nearly as cool as the Timeline guys, but you know, we have a good time. We like to party. So Matthew, you got anything else before we bounce? What are we doing for the draft? Are we gonna go live?
Yeah, we'll see. Want to see how the draft goes, and then maybe we can hop on after. Maybe an emergency pod after. You never know.
Or maybe we do it during, like 10.
Well, the Ringers doing something during that I kind of want to watch.
Okay, well then we'll do that, guys.
So I'm sorry.
We'll go live afterwards. This is how we produce things. Well, on that note, Jamsters, we appreciate you hanging out. If you're watching along live on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe. If you're listening on the pod feed, please subscribe there as well. Leave us a 5-star review. Everybody have a fantastic evening. We'll see you on Thursday potentially, unless Matthew is too busy watching Kevin O'Connor talk about, you know, freaking Suggs or something. But Matthew, you got anything else?
No, everyone go home and love your family.
Take care, everybody.